I like to look at the art world in terms of helping artists to see what opportunities are out there based on their paths. I
Yeah.
want to see different perspectives in the art world, in the world in general. I facilitate connections. I lead by experience. Getting involved, extracurricular activities show up and support other people. That's how you grow community. Your work grows through critique. You learn to lead. You learn to follow. I live with art around me. I see beautiful pieces.
Welcome to Angel City Culture Quest, where art, social justice, and the environment meet in Los Angeles. I am your host, Melina Paris, and I welcome you to this episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Angel City Culture Quest. Today, we're speaking to Kristine Schomaker, artist and cultural producer. Hi, Kristine. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. I'm glad to have you here today.
I'm honored to be here.
Kristine Schomaker is an artist mentor, community organizer, curator, advocate, cheerleader, facilitator, social activator, and artist. In 2014, Kristine founded Shoebox Arts, aimed at helping artists gain a presence in the art world, and in 2018, she founded the nonprofit January Arts, which officially became the publisher of her art magazine, Art and Cake, in 2024. Kristine runs an alternative art space, Shoebox Projects, at the Brewery Art Colony, and is an art activator for the organization Artists Thrive. She started a free peer mentorship program and call and response, collaboration at a distance, during the pandemic and offers free workshops to artists over Zoom. Her mission is to create community among artists and the art world in order to help each other thrive. Through social practice and engagement, Kristine is interested in using art and community, education, and expression to cultivate change. Kristine earned both a BA in art history and an MA in studio art at California State University, Northridge. She considers herself a cultural producer. Everything Kristine does is her art, including Shoebox Arts, through working with artists, mentoring, and in fostering community engagement. Shoebox Arts, which serves as a support system for artists, celebrates its 11th anniversary this month. Congratulations, Kristine.
Thank you. Thank you.
For more than a decade, Kristine said Shoebox has helped artists with the steps they need to take to achieve their goals. It offers resources, education, tools, coaching, mentoring, advice, and critique. And most importantly, Shoebox offers accountability. In 2016, Kristine started her magazine, Art and Cake, and with her board, decided to move Art and Cake under her nonprofit, January Arts. January Arts is now starting to fundraise to pay writers to review art exhibitions, and the nonprofit also plans to support artists, galleries, alternative spaces, and marginalized communities. Kristine's focus is on the community and the diversity of Los Angeles. She brings artists together. So, Kristine, earlier when we talked, you said you feel like you live in multiple little bubbles of Los Angeles and California, but you also live in a bubble of the brewery near downtown LA. Can you explain how the perception of living in a bubble has motivated you?
Yeah, gosh, in many ways. And especially, I've thought about it over the last few years with the elections, with politics, and with the art world in general, that especially during the pandemic, I was so fortunate to live at the brewery here. It's an artist community. They took care of us. I felt safe. My neighbors took care of each other. We had a little market. And so that was one bubble. I still haven't had COVID, knock on wood. So it just got me thinking about, okay, I need to get out there more. I live in an art bubble in LA because I go to different art openings and have a lot of art friends. And every time I go outside of LA, whether it's Lancaster, whether it is Arizona to visit my brother, it's a different world. I grew up in the desert. My dad was in the military, but that was a long time ago. And so going to museums in Mesa or Phoenix, I was in a gallery show in Tucson last spring. The art worlds are very different, and it just makes me realize that we're all unique. We all have different perspectives, and I try to be open-minded. I don't want to be that person that just has one view, one way of thinking. I
Yeah.
want to see different perspectives in the art world, in the world in general. Even like talking to people about why they voted the way they did. I know so many people that just are separating the different sides. But thinking about the bubble that I live in, I know I can help more people if I know, am an educated, and am able to look at the way different people live, if that makes sense, and how different people think.
I can really respect that, leaving yourself open to interpreting all different forms of art, like you said, because there's so much of it and there's many practitioners.
Absolutely. I have my degree in art history and studio art, and so I come from an academic background. I run an art magazine. I see how there are different bubbles of the art world. There are artists who do plein air painting, and they're very happy doing that, and they show in their associations. There are artists who are represented by galleries in Palm Springs or in Gagosian or Hauser and Wirth in
Yeah.
Los Angeles, the blue chip galleries, or that have shows at the Guggenheim or the Whitney. And there's artists in between all over the place. And the artists have different ideas of success. Artists have different paths they're on. And so I like to look at the art world in terms of helping artists to see what opportunities are out there based on their paths, based on where they want to go, based on the type of art that they do. And so I'm the type of person that, again, being open-minded and being able to look at different perspectives, helping artists kind of, I don't know, find their path in that way.
So you've been helping others your whole life. I want to share a little bit more background on you right now for our guests. You first started working as a volunteer candy striper at 14. Later, you got a job as a file clerk in the X-ray department where you worked through high school. Upon starting junior college, you worked in a radiology office, but from your earlier exposure to art, you said through your family, and particularly your aunt and uncle who were art collectors, you decided in your early 20s to become an artist. First, you enrolled in art history. Then, in your second semester, you took a painting class with well-known LA artist Cynthia Minette, who you're still friends with today. Later, while earning your master's in studio art, you also taught under a mentor at Antelope Valley College in Lancaster, which also provided you with educational experience. You noted during your college years, you also got involved in extracurricular activities. Can you tell us what those were, Kristine?
Yeah, when I was, working on my master's degree, and it took me 2 years to get my bachelor's and 7 years to get my master's because I was also working full time. So I went to Cal State Northridge and I joined the Art History Student Association. So I was a member of that, and then I became the president. And so I got my bachelor's in art history, and then I went on to get my master's in art history. I finished all of my coursework. I was working on my thesis. I was a graduate assistant and then a teaching assistant with Betty Brown, who is just amazing. And I was getting student loans. And so I only had 2 years left of student loans, and I decided to transfer to the studio art program. So
Wow.
it's like I'm an artist, my life is crazy. So I transferred to studio art because I wanted to focus on my own art, take classes in my own art with what I could afford through student loans. And I had the experience of art history. So I transferred to studio art and I joined the painting guild. And getting involved and the extracurricular activities are because of the mentors that I had. Because whether it was the teachers or other artists that I knew that said, get involved, they said, that's how you grow community. That's how you network. That's how your work grows through critique. That's how you learn to lead. You learn to follow. There's just so many more opportunities that open up when you get involved and when you show up and support other people also. So
Yeah.
by doing that in college, by joining the different organizations, I was able to meet more people. My work improved, my work grew and evolved and progressed. And I met more people. As the president of the Painting Guild, I was able to invite speakers to come and talk to the
Oh, nice.
artists. And one of them was Gajin Fujita, who is one of my all-time favorite artists. He shows at LA Louvre. He lives in Boyle Heights. He's just amazing. I had Alex Donis, whose work is perfect today. I mean, it's still so relevant. He paints like somebody in a gang and a cop dancing together. They're amazing. They are so powerful. He used to show at Bergamot Station. And then also Alex Cowenberg, who's a modern abstract artist that shows at William Turner. So I knew they had different backgrounds and different styles. And I actually was the one to reach out to LA Louvre to get Gajin Fujita's information. And just being able to do that helped me build confidence in being able
Yeah.
to ask and reach out. So all of that helped me after I graduated in 2010. And I graduated late. I went to school late. I am 52 now. And so that's like 15 years ago is when I graduated. But after I graduated, I also started a critique group with my peers, with people I went to school with. I lived in Northridge at the time, and we would meet at my house once a month. Everybody would bring art. We'd talk about, okay, what are we doing now? The school's out. Where's our art going? And that turned into like the support group where we supported each other. And I'm still really close friends with all of them. And that 15 years later, and we go to openings sometimes. And all of that is just from growing community, from getting involved.
Yeah, you built a strong network. It's really great that you could utilize that knowledge in your work, and your artists must really appreciate that. Can you tell us about your services and a little about what artists say about them?
Yeah. So when I was going to school, I was working in an emergency room. So
Yeah.
it's like people always laugh when I tell them that. But I've been in the medical field, kind of like you had mentioned that since I was 14 and I was a candy striper. And it paid the bills, it gave me medical insurance while I was going to school. And I was working in the emergency room when I graduated, and I lived in Northridge, and I realized, okay, I need to move closer to the art world. I need to move closer to LA. So I was able to move in with a roommate here at the brewery where I still live today and become part of the art world. I was a member of the Los Angeles Art Association, and I had a solo show. And I was in what was called Second Life, which is an online virtual world. And their solo show was mixing realities. It was like a hybrid virtual. I mean, now it's like there's a lot more of that out there, but at the time it was cutting edge. And I did so much work for it. And I didn't do any PR. I didn't really know what to do as far as PR went. I was putting on the show. And I realized I need to know what it takes to be an artist today. I need to go to workshops and panel discussions and talk to other artists. So I did that and I started going to workshops, and a friend at the time was also going to workshops. So we decided to study together, and he was having a solo show. It was around the end of January because that's when my birthday is. He was talking about hiring somebody to do PR for his show. And I'm like, well, you can hire me, thinking, I needed the money. I could make extra money. And so a week later, he called me up and he's like, well, hey, do you want to do this? So we sat down and we mapped out a strategy. We had 5 weeks for his show, which isn't that much time in the grand scheme of
Yeah.
things for PR. But we mapped out a strategy and I got him like at the time, Huffington Post was more respected than it is now. I got him a little thing in the Huffington Post and even the LA Times. I think it was in the environmental section. And we used social media to promote his show, and we got a lot of people there, and it was amazing. And because I promoted him and his show, I knew I needed a name. I knew I needed to be professional for my company. I didn't even think about starting a business. I was just thinking I need the money,
Yeah.
so I was hustling. But I knew I needed to be professional. So another friend of mine who's a graphic designer helped me. We came up with the name Shoebox, which is based on my last name, Shoemaker. And also my parents were in a van club in the 70s, and Shoebox was their CB handle. So yeah, Shoebox PR was born, and I created Facebook. I had a website. I got business cards and the whole bit. So after that, it was word of mouth. I was still working in the emergency room. I worked in the emergency room for a year after I started Shoebox, and I was doing Shoebox part-time. And in the emergency room, it was great because I worked 3 days a week, 12 hours a day. So I'd work noon to midnight, and it was perfect for me. I could do art the other 4 days, but they were changing my hours. They were changing it to 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. And even though I had been there 8 years, I was still lower on this seniority. My schedule would have been 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. And I am not a night person,
It's a hard
like at
no.
all.
Yeah.
I'm in bed at 7 every night, basically. And just, I knew I couldn't do it. So it was like now or never. I decided to take shoebox full time. I didn't have any savings. It was just kind of, okay, how are we going to do this month to month, client to client? And basically, it's been like that ever since. So for
But
the
it
last
survives. It
11
survives.
years, exactly. I figured it out. I've never been good with money, but I have a bookkeeper who's amazing and she has saved my life. I get an allowance. So
Oh, good.
she helped me through the pandemic and she's helped me with
Wow.
shoebox. And you asked me what services we offer, but I want to help artists. And so I have a habit of giving discounts and actually helping artists sometimes for free. And that doesn't necessarily help when I have to pay my bills. But what happened was when I took Shoebox full time, I started to think about, okay, what do artists need? What do they really need? They needed help with social media because Facebook and Instagram was fairly new. It was like just getting off the ground, I think, at the time. They needed help figuring out how to get out there. They needed to find opportunities. And so over the years, I have learned what my strengths are and how I could really help. Some of my strengths are research. And I'm an idea person. So artists come to me all the time asking questions about what do you think of this? Should I do this? All sorts of questions and resources, like I said. Do you know a graphic designer? Do you know a framer? Which is great because I'm happy to share friends, other resources to help them get work also. So somebody called me a facilitator. I facilitate connections, opportunities for people. So over the years, I've been an art manager where I've worked with a couple of artists, like helping them with everything. And then I realized that wasn't necessarily sustainable for me or it didn't make me happy. I'm better at education and teaching and workshops. So I do one-on-one consultations with artists as well as group meetings with artists. And I'm also good about connecting with professionals. We have speakers every month. We've had speakers since before the pandemic from the art world, whether it's gallerists or writers or historians or other artists that talk about their experience of being in the art world and answer questions that my artists really need to know. And so they can see this is what happens in the art world. And it's evolved. Shelley was my assistant for a long time and she became my manager. And she said, we're kind of like Frankenstein. I think about this often. We bring something from this over here. We pull from this and we kind of like bring it together. And I have grown to accept that because I'm not perfect at all. And that's okay. I teach and I lead by experience, by sharing my own experience.
That's commendable. It's so practical. Did you always know that somehow you wanted to work in a capacity to help others? Or being an artist, is that something that art engendered in you? Or something else?
Good question. Not necessarily. I didn't really realize I wanted to help artists. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Sometimes I'm like, what do I want to be when I grow up? I still ask myself that. I wanted to be an architect in school. So that's not necessarily helping others. It's designing homes and businesses, but I hate math. So that wasn't going to work. But it's so funny because I started candy striping at 14. And so I learned about helping people then. And then, of course, I got a job in the hospital and it was money focused. I was babysitting too. So I had my car before all of my friends. I was working before my friends and there was resentment there because they were all going out and I was working. But it taught me about service. It taught me about helping others. And then I stayed in the medical field because it gave me money. It allowed me to move out, from my parents' house. Again, it gave me medical insurance. And I did all that while I went to school, trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. And so you had kind of mentioned earlier my aunt and uncle. I used to go to their house and watch independent film, and we went to art galleries. And so they were the first ones to actually take me to art galleries. I had always admired art. My grandma used to take us to the Huntington Library, and I used to see the Blue Boy and Pinky. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I remember seeing it. My other grandparents used to have coffee table books of like Norman Rockwell, and they had like modern art prints and stuff like that. And I used to look through especially Norman Rockwell. And I loved looking at these stories that were being told visually and how an artist portrayed a feeling or an emotion or challenged the world, whatever he challenged what was going on at the time as far as the government or politics or being a kid or all of that. And so I know that stuck with me, all of it, whether I realized it then or not. It all stuck with me. And then going to my aunt and uncles and just realizing there's more than just mainstream entertainment, more than mainstream movies. Independent film was huge. And so I started taking film history classes in school. And then in 96, I took my first art history class. And that was it. The teacher was inspirational. And I loved learning about how art from like the Renaissance was shaped by what was going on in politics and history and with whatever was going on. It could be like World War II, the artists that were creating work based on what they were going through by being soldiers or by seeing death, all of that. And the 1970s with the feminist artists and performance art. And it opened up a world for me. And I'm like, I want to do this. And so in 1997, my next class was a painting class, and that was with Cynthia Minette. I live in her building now at the brewery. So it's come around full circle. And her daughter works for me. So it's amazing. So once that happened, Cynthia brought us to LACMA. We saw Yayoi Kusama. We saw Sam Francis at MoCA, and those two artists inspired everything for me. Who knows if I would have seen somebody else, what that would have done, but I was at the right place at the right time, saw those artists, they inspired everything.
What I'm hearing from you now, how the Norman Rockwell images and going to the museums, how they made an impression on you. And when you grew up, you realized that you could actually speak to current events by your work in art and putting it out there in the world. There's an influence from you and from all your past exposure.
Absolutely.
To talk about what's happening.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's a very long way of saying.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect.
If you're just tuning in, today we're speaking to Kristine Shoemaker, artist and cultural producer. Thank you for listening. Hello, folks. This is your host, Melina Paris. As Angel City Culture Quest begins its 4th year, we are dedicated to bringing you quest-worthy inspiration. With so much to cover in the Harbor region and Los Angeles in art, books, film, music, activism, and more. It's a challenge that I'm honored to embrace, discovering and bringing you the inspired stories and works of many different artists. A major highlight of 2024 was to present our video episode in front of a live audience. Consciousness Through the Lens of Abstraction, featuring esteemed artists Marie Thibault and June Edmonds. You can find that on our YouTube. That was a huge push, and we did it with the help of your support. I'm so grateful. Exciting developments are happening. Stay informed by liking, subscribing, and following our updates, featuring more great artists and authors, the latest in important documentaries, filmmaking, and more. And if you're able, please join me in this quest with your support. Think of it as a cultural tip jar. I would be honored to have your support to further my ability to bring you the powerful works of these artists and others and the cultural content that you crave. To donate, please go to patreon.com/Angel City Culture Quest. There you can find all of our past episodes. Thank you. So it seems like helping others is an extra appendage to all the other things that you're doing. The magazine, the nonprofit, Shoebox, your art, and now Shoebox is approaching year 11. So as you reflect on the time, you also said you've learned to be flexible and to pivot. Can you talk about when you've utilized those skills and how you've helped other artists do this?
Yeah, good question. I have to definitely give a shout out to Sharon Loudon. She has been an inspiration. She is the producer of a couple of books. She put together essays by artists that do more than just art, that run spaces, that have started residencies, that help produce culture, whatever that looks like. I've done many of her workshops and I want to be her when I grow up. She has definitely inspired a lot of what I do as an artist and through Shoebox and the nonprofit. It's really interesting because whenever I talk to my artists, I always learn about me. Whenever I teach my artists, I learn all the
Yeah.
time. You learn by teaching. I never really used the words flexible or pivot until recently. And I think I probably heard it from somebody else. And that's normally what happens because there's nothing new under the sun. And it doesn't even have to be an art. It could be somebody else talking about how they were flexible, or I use the word pivot. And it goes back to the Frankenstein thing. And it also goes back to working in the medical field. I was unhappy. It was a stable job. It gave me medical insurance, but going and doing the same thing every day, and it was like an office job. I mean, it was in the emergency room, and the experience was amazing. But I was unhappy working for somebody else and not being in art and not following who I truly was. And it was a different bubble. I've
Mm.
thought about it lately in terms of bubbles again, that I like my bubble actually. So there's that. But working in the emergency room, working in the medical field, working in any office, it's hard to be flexible. It's hard because you have bosses, you have an organization that you have to follow. Running your own business, I've been pivoting since the beginning. I've been like, it's part of hustling. It's
Yeah.
part of being flexible in order to make money. I don't want to be rich. When I say I'm not good with money, I use my allowance to buy art. And that's part of my eating disorder too. So I think about it. If I wouldn't have used shoebox money to pay for art and cake writers, I looked it up. Since I started art and cake, I've paid like $80,000 to art and cake writers. And that money came from shoebox. That was my money that came from working with shoebox artists. So again, it's month to month, client to client. I don't really have a savings. So in terms of pivoting and being flexible, what workshop do I need to do now? Or what new service do I need to add or take away? I used to do a call for art list. So almost since I started Shoebox, every 2 weeks I would put together a call for art list and I would research calls for art, grants, residencies, fellowships, and send a list to my artists. And I would filter out, and it took me hours. And then Shelly was doing it for a while. And it's funny, I talked to her the other day and I'm like, I got rid of that. So, because I know it was a pain in her butt too. But I realize now because I pivot according to the world, according to society, according to what's going on in our art community. There are so many places to find art opportunities now, whether it's on Facebook, whether it is other emails or other people sharing. It's hard to research and it's hard to filter out, and they're all sharing the same things. So I
Consistently.
decided I
Mhm.
could put more energy in other places and I could give my artists the tools and resources to look at the best sites, the best places in those terms. So I've pivoted there. The biggest pivot, and I've talked to many people about it, I started the nonprofit in 2018, January Arts, but as I think you had mentioned, we became the publisher of Art and Cake just in 2024, September, officially. So that was our official launch of January Arts and Art and Cake. And we were also going to move all the mentorship to January Arts. And I think I had mentioned this, that I wanted to be able to help artists free of charge. I
Right.
hate charging artists to do what I do, but I also have to make a living. So the biggest pivot was in December. We realized it's not sustainable. And so to move the mentorship back to Shoebox. And it was the right decision. It was a tough decision because I'm like, okay, what are people going to think of me of going back and forth? The people that have donated work or that have helped out so far. But one thing that I am good at is communicating and being honest and authentic. And I think that's what draws people to me. And if I can just be as transparent and truthful, honest, authentic as possible, then they get it and they'll understand. And being able to flex it and pivot helps my artists see that it's okay to do that. what are the rules? Who's setting the rules? We have to do what is best for us that's going to make us happy, whether it's me or what's going to make my artist happy, what's going to be easier for my artist to understand. That goes with everything. And I'll just share this one last thing that I pivoted on. Perceive Me, that we're going to talk about in a couple minutes, I think.
Yeah.
I had been working on Perceive Me since 2018. And last year, I decided I was finished. It was a few-year project. The exhibition traveled to 5 different locations in Southern California. It was a lot of work. I did most of it. I had artists helping me transport, loading U-Haul. They helped me pay for storage. It was just
Wow.
organizing, and I had spreadsheet after spreadsheet. It was a lot of work. And also, Perceive Me is about me. It's about body image. It's about my eating disorder. It's about being plus size. And it's hard when you're looking at yourself that much for that long. And so I can't do it anymore. That was in 2023. So then in like December of 2023, the other art fair reached out to me and they're like, we have this thing in Brooklyn called Get Nude, Get Drawn that an artist put together where he brought together artists and anybody from the public can sign up to pose nude and get drawn. And we love your Perceive Me project. We want to know if you want to do it as part of Perceive Me. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
was just, that was it. I was just, there's that pivot. It was like, you never know what's around the corner. I tell my artists this all the time. You never, never know. And it was like the perfect next step to Perceive
Yeah.
Me. I'm like, of course, bringing in the public, seeing how they are able to get naked, shed their inhibitions, see the beauty of their bodies, whatever it looks like. And it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. It was like 4 days. There were like 40 or 50 models. There were 30 or 40 artists total that drew, and all professional, all very private and safe men, women that posed, and they could buy the drawings. Otherwise, they've become part of the Perceive Me archive. And we did it again in October of this year at the
Mhm.
Brewery Art Walk. And also because of that, I decided to continue on working with artists and collaborating for Perceive Me.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Let's talk about that because Perceive Me is about bringing artists together. And I think at one point you mentioned 60 artists,
Yeah.
but there's also the social practice to it. Can you talk about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Perceive Me, I don't even know where the idea came from. My master's thesis in studio art was focused on comparing myself with my avatar in Second Life, who was tall, thin, blonde, the ideal beauty. And so my professor at the time, Samantha Fields, who's also still my mentor, she's like, why does your avatar look like that? And so she wanted me to explore that more. So I did. And that's when I realized I had an eating disorder. That's when I also realized I had anxiety and so went to therapy and all that stuff. So that's when my work with body image started and work with actually using art as a form of therapy and also to challenge and talk about the ideal body in society and that there isn't one. It's like the media distorts so much.
Yeah.
So I started to use it as a personal project about me. Why did I want to be thin? What did that mean? What did that look like? And so I did my master's thesis and then I also paint. So I painted right after that because I needed to get out of my head. Things just happen. I never know where the ideas are going to come from. I was at a hotel in Ventura, the Crown Plaza, and the door going into the bathroom was this frosted glass door. When the light came through, it glowed. And so I saw the potential. I got undressed and I put my phone on the bed and I posed behind the glass. I took like 300 pictures of me leaning against the glass, posing so it was my silhouette. And it was really cool.
Was that the
And
one that was at Mass Attack a couple
yes,
weeks
yes,
ago? That's
yes.
a beautiful
Yeah.
picture.
And that was like the third series because I did 2 others after the initial. So
Okay.
yes, that was from Palm Springs. I went to a couple different hotels and found frosted glass doors. I got back and I went to lunch with a friend a week later and I showed her what I did and she's like, I want to give you a solo show. So I had
Oh,
a solo show of that
wow.
work. But it was all again focused on body image and focused on putting my plus size body out there, showing that it's normal, that this is who
Mhm.
I am, that it's okay to be whatever size you are. And it's much more than that. So that continued my work with body image. And then because I was using my own body in my art, a couple of artists I know reached out and said, I'd love to, if you'd love to be part of my project, I'd love to draw you or I'd love to photograph you.
Oh,
And so I had a friend photograph me for his project called Bodies Mapping Time, which he's shot, I think, over 90 women now, different shapes, sizes, disabilities, mastectomies, ages. They're gorgeous. And it took me a couple of years to actually pose and work with him. And so I did that. And then another friend invited me. She drew me. And when she was drawing me, we were having conversation about perception, about self-esteem and
mhm.
self-confidence and self-worth, and how oftentimes our self-worth, and I say my self-worth, comes from how I imagine others see me.
Yeah,
And I have no idea what other people are thinking. You
right.
know, I have no idea. It's how I imagine. I'm putting thoughts in their mind. So I want to do a project where I can see myself through others' eyes. So Amanda, who was drawing me, was officially the first one. But then I brought J. Michael Walker, who did the photograph before that. He is part of the project. And then after that, I just started inviting friends who I knew who were photographers or figure painters or drawers to be part of the project. And I was going to do 20 or 30, and then it went to 40, and then it went to 50, and then it went to 60.
It
So I
grows.
finished, yeah, with the 60th artist in August of 2019 because I had already shopped it around and it showed at Cal State Los Angeles
Oh,
with Mika Cho, and we were putting together a catalog. And so I needed to finish then and get all the photos so we could get the catalog going. And it opened January of 2020. And right when it closed is when the pandemic hit. But I had also got it accepted into four other spaces. So it was delayed, but ended up traveling to those four other places. So it was a lot of work working with those artists and again, traveling the show. So that's when I decided I was finished until I pivoted and
yeah.
brought it back.
That's great. I love that story.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it sounds like a great experience. And I wanted to note what I gleaned from the images in your studio and online, both, is confidence. The way you stand, the way you carry yourself, but also the way you approach people. That's carried over into what's expressed in the drawings and paintings and all of the mediums. And having those fine artists depict you, it's an honor, but that's your legacy. Can you describe what perceive me means to you?
Yeah, and it's interesting thinking about legacy because I haven't thought about that until recently. A couple people have said that perceive me as my life's work, and that's the other reason I decided to continue it because there's artists that I'm inspired by. Eleanor Anton. She took photos of herself in her 20s and then she did again in her 60s or 70s. And those were at LACMA a few years ago. So it'll be a documentation of my changing body, whether I get
Yeah.
thinner, bigger as I get older. So if I continue the project, it's interesting because I live with art, with the Perceive Me art around me. And some of the artists have given me their work, and then others I'm holding it because I want it to travel again. And so I look at myself every day. And for me, I do see the artness of the work. I see beautiful pieces, but also it means love. I just submitted to open show and the theme is love. So I submitted the Perceive Me project because each artist that I worked with, some of them I didn't know, but I know now. I got to know. And every artist was just so generous and caring and loving and supportive. They're part of the project because they got it. And they saw something in me that I still don't see. I'm still trying to find my self confidence. And I've talked about it before. Modeling is a different thing. I actually really liked modeling unless I was in a position that I was really sore. But I felt like a celebrity. I felt like a supermodel standing there with my hands on my hips, smiling. And sometimes when I saw the pictures, I'm like, but I'm fat. You know, this is something I've learned over the years, especially from Shelley. I could feel two things at once. I could
Exactly.
feel confident, but I can also feel fat. I could feel proud, but I can also feel sore, things that I'm learning. But the other thing about Perceive Me is, yes, it's about me. It's an autobiography. I'm the artist of the project, and I collaborated with each of these artists. But it's also about all of the artists involved, and it's also about the public. It's also about the viewer, which is why it becomes social practice, why doing the nude portrait sessions was so important. And it wasn't even a blip on my radar. I'm like, yes, that's perfect. That is exactly what we needed to do. So creating a Perceive Me community, the community of artists who I've collaborated with. And since then, I've worked with 30 more artists who are
Oh,
drawing,
wow.
painting, photographing, sculpting me. And I still have 30 more on my list. I've taken a break because of the holidays and shoebox and January arts and everything else I have going on, but I'm going to be getting back to it. But the community of artists who are drawing now through the social practice. So it's along the same lines of shoebox and January arts and art and cake, where it is about community. It's in that
Yeah,
regard.
it's all
So
connected.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't want to skip over what comes next for Shoebox.
Hopefully peace. Hopefully, like some sort of peace and calm and consistency. I'm always adding workshops. I just did a goal workshop yesterday, and I know it helped my artists a lot. I have a 6-week professional development workshop that I just am starting to promote. It's starting March 1st. So there's those, but also new speakers coming in. Because I'm an idea person, I'm like, ooh, I could do this with Shoebox. I could do this with Shoebox. What if we do a field trip here? What if I meet somebody tomorrow who's the curator at LACMA and say, can I bring my artist by? I don't know what's around the corner. It's kind of the same thing with my art. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with art and cake. I have no idea. As with everything, what's around the corner? And looking at my list that I did for my goals, my in the goal workshop yesterday, a couple things that came up for me that I didn't really anticipate was taking classes on fundraising and taking
Oh,
classes on money and learning about money, because whether it's for artists, because artists need money in order to continue to create, but of course live. I need to learn how money works. And I know how money works, but because I don't have much money, I don't understand how other people can have money, if that makes sense. The value of money, it's an interesting thing. And so I feel like for me, I'm always learning. I am always learning. I want to find a master class because I don't want to go back to college for that.
yeah.
But to be able to learn how that works and even fundraising, because if we can get art and cake going and supporting artists, especially through the next few years, it's going to be an amazing thing.
That's awesome. That's a very valuable course right there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I wish you the best with that.
Thank you. Me too.
Um, thank you. So you kind of got into it, but what are you doing now? What are you working on now?
Oh, yeah, good question. Everything.
Yeah.
People tell me all the time, you are so busy. How do you do it? And I'm like, I have no idea. First of all, I'm single and I don't have kids. So that
Yeah.
helps. And I live my life how I want to, which is nice. But that means pivoting and hustling and also being open to whatever is around the corner. And for me, recently I started drawing. I was on a residency over Thanksgiving in Temecula, and I just took my drawing stuff and I thought, I'm just going to doodle. I'm just going to draw. And what came out, I didn't realize at the time, but I realize now it's called asymmic writing, asymmic drawing. It's like writing, but it's unreadable. Like you're writing something, but there's no words, there's no letters. There's more to it than that. But it is just like coming out. Ever since November, I probably have 30 or 40 pieces that I've done up to last night of just using color. I used to journal a lot, but I don't journal much anymore. So for me, it's just a way of getting out of my head, of getting all of this stuff. I told my therapist it's like lotto balls going back and forth in my head. And also, I put it in forms of letters. So the asymmic writing or drawing is actually in forms of letters. And it could be a letter to myself. It could be a letter to my inner child. It could be a letter to 2025, or it could be poems.
It resembles handwriting. that
Yeah.
it's not,
Yes.
but it is.
Exactly. And I've thought a lot about it in terms of like fake news and our post-truth world that we're living in. And the idea that it's illegible, I feel like that has some correlation with the media today. What do we believe? It's almost illegible. It's unreadable. It's unviewable
That's
because it's
very
like we don't
poignant.
know
That's very
what is
poignant.
real.
I have to say, looking at some of your posts, when you put them all together, all the pages next to one another, side by side, they look like a textile.
Yeah.
So there's beauty to it and there's layers to it.
Yep.
So this will be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, I've already thought about putting together zines. I thought
Oh,
that could be interesting, a catalog, a book of letters. And I've also thought about going bigger. I mean, the biggest I've gone is 14 by 17 inches, but getting canvas on the wall and just having a scroll. I've had a couple of friends do something similar, and I'm like, I don't want to copy them, but I could see that happening.
that sounds really awesome. There's a lot going on that you have to write out.
Yes, exactly.
So, can you tell us where people can support January Arts and
Yeah.
where they can find you?
Yeah, thank you. January Arts, we have a website, januaryarts.org, and you can go on the website. And from there, you can also find Art and Cake, the art magazine. With Art and Cake, one of our recent profiles, it's called 60 over 60. So I put a call out for artists over 60 years old. I was going to profile 60 artists and I had like 200.
Oh my
So
God.
I've done them all. They've all been spotlighted. So talking about diversity and artists who have been marginalized for so long, there's age, there's race, there's sex, there's all of that. And so that's one of the features I'm really proud of. You can find Art and Cake through the January Arts website. And then I have a website, kristineschomaker.net, my first and last name, and then also shoeboxarts.com. And you can find all of those on social media too. And our social media links are on the websites.
And I'll add those on our show notes too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we sign off?
I can't think of anything. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, we did. You do a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kristine Shoemaker. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it has. You're welcome. You're very welcome. And thank you for your generosity.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.